Good evening and good afternoon to everyone joining us from different locations around the world. Welcome to the University of New South Wales Sydney International Student Aviation webinar. My name is Chiara Rigoni and I'm the Recruitment Product Manager in the UNSW Future Students team. I'll be your host this evening. Thank you for joining me and the rest of our team for our session. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Bedigal, Gadigal and Ngunnawal people and the Darug and Eora people, of which are the traditional custodians of the land on which each of our UNSW campuses stand. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders, both past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are joining us today. Before we get started, I'm just going to take you through a little bit about what will be in our session today. We're going to hear from UNSW Aviation School experts, including Professor Brett Molesworth, the head of School of Aviation. Brett will give us an introduction to UNSW Aviation, industry and career insights, and how to apply for our aviation management program. We'll also hear from Malcolm Good, the Director of Flight Operations and the Chief Pilot. Malcolm will present on the Bachelor of Aviation flying program and admissions requirements. We will then have a question and answer panel with both Brett and Malcolm. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the chat function. You can also like other people's questions by giving them a thumbs up and voting for them. We also have Lauda, Yuyan and Katie from our aviation team in the background, and they will respond to your questions. There'll be time to ask questions at the end of the presentations as well. Now, before we get started with our aviation program information session, I want to introduce you all to the University of New South Wales in Sydney. So on the screen now, you can see our beautiful campus in the forefront there. We are located on the east coast of Australia in the beautiful city of Sydney and have the best of the city right at our doorstep. The CBD and its global businesses are just a short light rail trip away, and the world famous beaches at Bondi and Coogee are not too far from our Kensington campus. UNSW Sydney is ranked in the top 50 universities in the world and just recently has been named among the world's top universities in the 2023 QS World University Rankings by subject. In fact, 4 UNSW subjects were ranked in the top 20 globally and 19 in the top 50. UNSW is a world-leading teaching and research centre recognised by employers and organisations around the globe. We're dedicated to shaping a generation of forward-thinking graduates who'll make a positive impact in our world. From world-class education to making new lifelong friends, UNSW will offer you valuable experience in and out of the classrooms and in our beautiful city of Sydney. With over 25 years of experience in industry collaboration, the UNSW aviation programs are designed to prepare you for rewarding careers in both technical and management roles. Our industry facilitators bring a wealth of aviation experience, while our academic staff frequently engage with regulatory authorities, industry bodies, and research collaborations. To begin, I'd like to welcome Professor Brett Molesworth, Head of the School of Aviation for Head of School for UNSW Aviation. Thank you, Brett.
Thanks, Chiara. Welcome, and I'd like to start this presentation by talking about the aviation industry. And as you know, COVID, the last 3 years, has impacted adversely on the aviation industry, or more broadly, the tourism industry. That's behind us now, and if we look at the aviation industry, it is soaring to new heights. We see demand for pilots as well as management staff exceeding all our expectations. If we have a look at United Airlines in the US, for example, at the moment, they estimate approximately 25,000 new staff are required. And that's just one of the 3 major airlines in the United States. Demand in Australia is equally as strong. We look at Boeing, for example, and Boeing also estimates a large number of skilled, both pilots as well as aviation professional staff required. So the industry is going from strength to strength. We look at new aircraft and we look at new aircraft sales. Again, we see huge numbers, and these numbers mean that they need pilots, they need cabin crew, they need aviation professionals to ensure that they remain safely in the air. And these are all the roles that we offer at UNSW Aviation. So if we look at the employers within the aviation system, they range from the large aircraft manufacturers to the large airlines, as well as airports and other organisations such as the regulatory body and the accident investigation body. And on the left-hand side, you see just some of the careers we've listed here in aviation from a flying perspective. So these are the pilot roles. And I don't want you to limit your thoughts to the large airlines, because there are many regional airlines. There are many small operators, charter operators, for example, fly-in, fly-out operators that transport employees such as miners to their place of work. We've got even smaller operators that look at ferrying passengers around and ill passengers. So we have the medical industry that are in high demand for pilots. On the right-hand side, we move to the operational side and what we'd like to call the management side. And there are a range of job opportunities in those areas. If you think about airlines, they need to schedule aircraft. They need to schedule their operations, such as airports themselves. They need to ensure that they have the appropriate planning, building infrastructure, etc. And for that, they need experienced and well-educated individuals, which is one of the advantages of studying here at UNSW. So we've listed just a few of those areas that could seek employment. If we look at the qualifications of professionals moving into the industry, we've got, from a pilot's perspective, one needs the appropriate pilot licenses. And those we've listed there: commercial pilot's license and air transport pilot's license. Accompanying those licenses, you need some practical experience. And airlines are employing people with as little as 500 flight hours, and in some cases, substantially more hours, up to about 2,000 hours. If we look at the management program, so those individuals on the ground, you'll note that the good employees often have a degree in a few areas, some of those in an engineering or a business background, and then the others in an aviation background with specific knowledge in the area of aviation management. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So the aviation industry respects very highly tertiary qualified individuals, because what those individuals acquire from completing a degree is this ability to think at a higher level, and that prepares individuals intellectually for the career that they embark on. Aviation-specific careers, or careers in specific areas such as aviation, are extremely valued by aviation employees. And that's because the education that they receive at university in an applied degree is directly applicable to their work environment. And you'll note, and I believe on our next slide, we have the industry connection that dictates, and for us, guides us in our ability to develop and deliver our program that is applicable for the industry. You'll note on the left-hand side, UNSW, we're ranked 45th in the world. We are the highest ranked university that offers an aviation management and flying degree. So we're very proud of our ranking at an international level, because that ensures that we deliver a program that is directly applicable to industry to an extremely high standards. If you have a look at our flight operations unit, and Mr. Good will talk about that in a moment, you'll note that we have our own aircraft and we have our own air operator certificate. Backing that up, or in conjunction with that, we employ our own flight instructors. So that ensures that we can deliver flight training to a high standard, and a standard that we're proud of. We also have our own fleet of aircraft. And again, Mr. Good will talk about those a little bit later on, but just as a little bit of a teaser, we've got DA-40 single engine aircraft, we've got twin engine aircraft, the Piper Seminoles, and then we have a number of ground training devices. And most of you would be familiar with the Boeing 737, and we have one of those as a simulator. And then we have a Diamond DA40 FRASC or equivalent simulator. So if we move to the next slide, thank you. A little bit about the school. As Kira mentioned, we're located at Kensington, which is right near the, or in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. We also have our airport, or where we fly our aircraft out at Bankstown Airport. So we're in two locations. This school was established in 1995, so we have a very good, strong and positive history of delivering quality flight training. We're relatively small in the big scheme of things. The school has approximately 80 staff members. Those members divided amongst our undergraduate program, our postgraduate program, and our flight operations unit out at Bankstown Airport. We have about 300 management students, and that's over the 3 or the 4 years that we offer the degree program. And we have approximately 110 full-time flying students. And that again is spread over those 3 years. As you'll see on the screen, you've got a number of different aircraft. Our top left is the most common single engine aircraft that we fly as part of our training. And then we show you a few other aircraft such as the Cessna and our Piper Seminole on the left-hand side. We had, as I mentioned before, a number of flight training devices. So these are ground flight simulators, and we've just shown you a few of those there. Okay, I might move on to the next slide. Thank you. Our education programs, we have both an undergraduate and postgraduate program. As you'll see, there are 4 undergraduate and 7 postgraduate programs. I'm not going to talk about every one. I'm only going to emphasise the undergraduate programs, and we'll discuss 3 or 4 of those. So if we have a look at the Bachelor of Aviation Management program, it is a 3-year program, and that's the first one listed on your screen there. And that provides the practical skills associated with managing airlines, ground operations within the aviation industry. We also have a 4-year program, which is a dual degree. So this combines our Bachelor of Aviation Management with a Bachelor of Commerce. So in other words, you'll complete the core components of our aviation management program, as well as the core components of the Bachelor of Commerce. So if we just move, thank you. If we look in greater detail at these programs, you'll note that the core of our aviation management focuses on science, that's maths, statistics, as well as the applied component in the area of aviation, human factors and aviation safety or flight safety. And then we listed a few others there, airline, airport management. We've got law and regulations, economics I briefly mentioned before, and then we move into simulation as well as air traffic control. There are other focuses such as security that we ensure that our students are well versed in. If we have a look at the entry requirements into our program, this is just some equivalents from what's local within Australia. So for international students, the 8-hour equivalent is about 75, and I'll let you work through the others there. English language requirements, as part of both the management stream as well as the flying stream, English language is important, and being from a native English university, there are minimum requirements for students entering into our program. And again, they're listed on the screen there. So how to apply, I suppose the most important bit, how to apply for our program. There are 2 methods and they're rather easy. The first one is jump online. So jump online to UNSW, or you could look at the UAC, that's the University Admission Centre International. So both methods will bring you back to UNSW and the application process there. So Kara, that was all I believe I had, and it was, I'm hoping I kept it short as possible just to allow more time for questioning.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brett, for sharing your knowledge and insights into the aviation industry and career outcomes and information on our Bachelor of Aviation Management. Just to remember, if anybody does have additional questions for Brett, just pop them into the question and answer, and we can help you with those after the presentations are finished. Next up, I would like to introduce you to Malcolm Good, the Director of Flight Operations and the Deputy Head of School for Flying at UNSW Aviation. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Kiara. Hi, everyone. Malcolm Good's my name. I'm the Director of Flight Operations at the Flying Operations Unit. I've worked at UNSW for about 20 years, and hopefully what I'll be able to do is give you some information about the course and maybe how to apply, although we have an expert admissions team that can answer all your questions there. What I'm keen to do is just describe what you'll do as a flying student and what qualifications you'll finish the program with, and maybe give you a bit of an insight into how to succeed, particularly in first year, which is a reasonably important year. The flying's in second year, but I'll get to that now. So I know there's a lot of words on this table, but starting at the top left and going across is first year, and term 1 and term 2 you spend at Kensington doing the same courses as Bachelor of Aviation Management students. And look, this is important to sort of take that time to acclimatise to being in a new country, also to learn your way around, make some friends, get your study habits in order, and very importantly, if you haven't had the opportunity to learn to drive a car in your home country before you come, I would strongly recommend that you do that before you start flying. Many of the skills that you'll need in the aeroplane, you can actually learn in a car, and that skill of surviving, number one, but number two, managing other traffic, your distance away from things, the speed of the vehicle, looking outside and manipulating controls inside the vehicle to achieve a result is pretty much how you fly an aeroplane. Not quite as simple as that, but that will get you on your way. Term 3, that's where the flying theory course starts. It's called RPL. RPL, that's a recreational pilot license, aeronautical knowledge. And you'll also do flight selection at the start of term 3. I'm going to talk about flight selection a bit more in a minute, but it involves 4 hours of flying and some other activities. Second year is where the fun begins. So we've got 7 commercial subjects. They are the theory subjects you'll need to get your commercial pilot license. And in the sort of row below that, there's 40 hours flying in the DA40 for a recreational pilot license, another 31 for a private license, leading to a commercial license after about 161 hours all up. A commercial pilot license is the license you need to work as a pilot. That will get you into an airline as a co-pilot. You need what's called an air transport pilot license to become a captain. Each country's licensing requirements slightly different, but most of them require at least 1,500 hours of flying before you can get that air transport pilot license. I'll talk more about that in a sec, but in terms of flying, after you get your commercial license, you do a multi-engine class rating in the Seminole and then your instrument rating in the Seminole. And the instrument rating is the qualification that allows you to fly in bad weather and at night. And each professional pilot spends a lot of their time at night flying around the world and also through bad weather. So that instrument rating is pretty important. Term 1, academic coursework. Terms 2 and 3 of third year is air transport pilot license theory, 7 courses, and they are the theory requirements that will allow you to obtain an air transport pilot license once you have the flying hours. So I mentioned flight selection a moment ago. Flight selection happens in the term break between term 2 and 3 of first year. It is a process whereby you come to Bankstown Airport, you do some briefings, so we give you some general information about how to fly the aeroplane. You do 4 hours of flying, 1 hour in the Frasca, which is a synthetic trainer, like a simulator, and you do an aptitude test. That's called the compass test, and you can see the things it's testing for there. In fact, several airlines around the world use this exact test or a similar test. So what we're looking for in flight selection is that you have the ability to pass the course, because as we'll see in a moment, it's very expensive. It's a large investment in time and effort, and if people aren't suited, well, it's better for you and for us to find that out early. Now, most people are very successful at this and go straight into second year with no problem. So part of flight selection as well is the first thing on the list there, which is an academic course. That's the Recreational Pilot Licence Aeronautical Knowledge course, and that's held at Kensington in term 3. So flight selection right before term 3 starts, and then the theory course that leads to your first licence in term 3, and then all going well, second year. That's where the fun is. You might have seen on the first slide there was some electives. Electives are chosen by students at the end of the ATPL theory, and there's a list of electives there. And the two that are probably most relevant to our international students are the first two on the list. First one there is multi-crew cooperation. That is a relatively new course across the world, and it teaches pilots how to fly as part of a crew of more than one pilot. So when you do your flying training, even though you're with an instructor for most of it, we train you and you're licensed to fly as a single pilot. But once you get into an airliner, the flight manual requires more than one pilot, and the techniques you use to interact with the crew are different to what you learned as a single pilot. So the multi-crew cooperation course is a 40-hour course in the simulator that teaches you how to operate as a crew. That's taught by ex-airline pilots who have had a long career in airlines and who are really keen to put something back into the industry, so they kindly agree to come and deliver that course for us. Second elective on the list there is called Airline Experience. And what this one is if you get an Australian commercial licence and you need to return to your home country to find employment, sometimes the aviation regulator in those countries requires more flying hours than you would do in a normal training course. So our course is 200 hours. Hong Kong, for example, the CAD require 250 hours to convert your Australian CPL to a Hong Kong CPL. Now, this elective is designed to get you that extra aeronautical experience that's required for you to convert your license. So if you want to do that, what we'll do together is sit down and have a look at exactly what the requirements are in your home country, and they do change. So we'll make sure we get it right, and then we can design the elective to get you as many hours as you need to convert your license. So nothing comes without a price. Flying's an expensive business. So in 2024, you can see there the direct fee for the commercial license and the instrument rating in the multi-engine aeroplane is $143,500. That includes all the flying up to and including the instrument rating, your uniform, textbooks, all your CASA. CASA's our regulator, so all the regulatory theory exams, the license issue fees, security check fees. So if you pass all your exams first go, then you don't have to pay any extra. That's the total fee. And in addition to that, there are tuition fees for your academic courses that I don't think they're out yet for 2024, but you get them from the website. So how to apply? The normal procedures that Professor Malesworth mentioned earlier apply, but in addition, to that, we do require an application form submitted directly to the school. You can get that from our website. And then after you submit that form, we will contact you normally in about September or October before first year, and we'll conduct an admissions interview. Now, that interview is designed to make sure that you've got the basic requirements to complete the course, and also to give you some information about medical certification, make sure you understand the fees and certain other matters. Now, medical certification, each pilot, wherever they work, requires a medical examination, usually from a designated aviation doctor. And there are different grades of medical certificate. Here in Australia, there's a Class 1 and Class 2 medical. The Class 1 medical is the sort of the higher grade one, and that's the one you need to work as a pilot. Now, we require that you obtain that medical certificate before you start flying. And that's for your benefit just as much as ours. If there's a problem, a medical problem, you want to know about that before you spend time and money on flying, only to find out later that there's a problem. So, yeah, you can conduct those medical exams overseas, or if you have to, you can do it once you're in the country. But the first step to do that is to get what's called an ARN, which is an aviation reference number. But we'll talk to you more about that at the interview. I think they're identical to the ones that were on the screen earlier. And yeah, if you go to that link, there are a whole lot of extra other relevant qualifications. So it's not just limited to those on the screen. So please do check for the qualification or the results you need for the country you're in, or the secondary school qualification you've got. I already spoke about license conversion. The main pathways for our international students are two. If you can get work rights to stay in Australia, many of our international students try and do that. However, many also like to return home and gain employment. Now, it's definitely airline dependent, and I saw on an earlier slide that 500 hours was what you need to be employable. That's not quite right. The Singapore Air, for example, are taking direct entry second officers with 200 hours, which is what you'll get if you train with us. Any professional training course has about 200 hours. Cathay Pacific, I think, has 250 hours. So there are jobs there all around the world for pilots who are just out of training school. And I think that that's only going to improve as the world emerges from COVID. Unfortunately, a lot of airline CEOs were short-sighted and laid off a lot of staff. People retired, and now there's a labour shortage that you'll be in the prime position to fill. Some of the other things there, I think in the interest of time, I'll finish here, but if anyone has any questions about a cadetship or any of our mentoring programs, then please ask. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Malcolm. Thanks for the detailed information on the Bachelor of Aviation flying program. Just again, if anybody has any additional questions for Malcolm, just pop them in the chat and our team can assist you. So moving on now, I'm going to, based on the questions that everybody has been adding to the chat, and also when you registered, some of our students put in questions that they would like answered. I'm going to ask some questions to Brett and Malcolm that will cover a lot of common themes. So continuing on with the employment information we were just chatting about then. Brett, what types of jobs can international students work in whilst they're undertaking the course at UNSW?
Okay, so while they're undertaking the course, providing that they have a visa that permits them to work, they can complete any job or work for any organisation that they're qualified to work for. So most students, while completing our degree, will work in the service industry. We do have a program within our, we have a course within our program called Work Integrated Learning. And so that allows the student, typically in the second or third year, to complete work experience at one of our partner organisations. That could be an airline, it could be a regulator, it could be one of the many partners that we have within the aviation industry. So that will provide them work experience in the aviation industry. Now, if that question related more broadly to if they were to go back home to their home country and seek employment after completing our aviation degree, if that's the case, then it's no different to any job that they would find within Australia or any other airline, any other country. That's an airline regulator. It could be air traffic control if that's the area that they wanted to focus on in terms of the management side of things as opposed to directing aircraft. Accident investigation, and then you've got the smaller operators, airline management, air operation. So there are all these different roles that they could be certainly qualified to walk into.
Thanks, Brett. We touched on it briefly before around the employment prospects, obviously now pre-COVID, for both flying and aviation management graduates. But can you give us just an overview of the picture of what aviation industry job prospects for our students look like now, both here in Australia and overseas?
Yeah, well, I can start to answer that. At the moment, it's probably the strongest it's been in a very long time. We are continually asked for lists of students that are graduating from that airlines, local airlines, and we've been contacted by a number of international airlines to disseminate job adverts. And that's both in the management role as well as in the flying role. So I mentioned before that we have an industry advisory committee, and through that we get contacts about job opportunities. I can tell you at the moment that United Airlines in the United States are employing 70 pilots a week. That's to fill the requirements, that's to fill the aircraft that they have sitting idle at the moment. And that's only one of the 3 largest airlines in the US. And locally, our pilots that complete our program, that do well in our program, are highly sought after. So Malcolm may be able to add a little bit more to the demand for our pilots.
Thanks, Brett. So if you can, I suggest you type into Google something like World Airline Passenger Numbers or World Air Passenger Miles, and what you'll see is since the 70s, the growth in air miles or passengers traveling by air is pretty steady. It goes up, 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 and then you can see all the crises that have happened to the world. The energy crisis in the late 70s, the Gulf War in the early 90s, SARS in the early 2000s, global financial crisis, and then finally COVID. COVID's certainly the biggest one. You see a little dip, right? And then after a while, not long normally, the upward trend continues. Now, what COVID's done is mask that underlying demand for pilots. And normally those shocks, about a year. It takes about a year for the industry to recover and get back to where it was. COVID's taken a bit longer, but the overall trend is the same. So to give a straight answer, the demand for pilots is huge. During COVID, many pilots retired. Many pilots went back to the military, and many pilots changed career completely. And this is senior pilots and pilots at the middle level. So what that's done is created a vacuum, and that vacuum picks up entry-level pilots and progresses them quickly through the airline. I'm close with a lot of people at Qantas, and their main problem now is how to train all their new pilots and all the pilots going onto different aeroplanes fast enough. So I think that if you start now, when you finish, I don't have a crystal ball, but the answer is demand is very strong.
Thank you, Malcolm. And we've just got quite a few students just wanting that confirmation that once they graduate from the UNSW Aviation program, that they are able to work as a pilot in Australia and in their home country as well.
So to work as a pilot, you need a commercial license and an instrument rating. That's from a licensing perspective. Many airlines would require air transport pilot license theory subjects as well. So you've passed those theory exams. That's all included in the course. There are other requirements as well. You need to be able to pass a security background check. You need to have a certain minimum level of English, which if you pass our course, you will have that minimum level. So that's really not a concern. And the other major thing you need to have is your medical certification. So we can't do that for you, but don't smoke, and you should be okay if you're a reasonably healthy person. But the answer is yes. As long as you have a commercial license, an instrument rating, and you pass your ATPL theory, generally you can work anywhere in the world, provided you meet the conversion requirements for the country you're trying to be licensed in.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm. The next question, some of the students want to know if you're allowed to share one or two of the interview questions for the aviation flying program.
Okay. So I don't want to dominate this whole proceedings, but I'll give you an overview of the interview. It looks at mental arithmetic, motivation. So by motivation, we mean your reason that you want to fly, or you want to be a pilot. It looks at your situational awareness, your communication skill, your teamwork, planning, independence, motor skills. So some of the questions we might ask, in addition to the basic, why do you want to be a pilot, would be things like, you've got a 12-hour flight and the aeroplane burns 14 tonnes of fuel per hour. How many tonnes of fuel do you need on board? That might be an example of a mental arithmetic question. We might ask you to estimate something like the volume of the room you're sitting in, or we might ask you to point to where you think north is, which is pretty hard for us to tell because we're on the other side of the world from you. But we would ask you some general questions about the form of the Earth, so where countries are in relation to other countries, which direction you'd have to go to get from Mumbai to Frankfurt. Nothing that someone who isn't interested in flying wouldn't know. If you're going to be a good pilot, you need to be keen to operate complex machinery in a high pressure environment. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Malcolm. Brett, I'll throw another one back to you. Are you able to give us some examples of the types of jobs aviation management students, after they've graduated, have gone into?
Yes, certainly. My background, I'm a registered psychologist and as well as a general aviation pilot. So I can tell you a lot about the human factors and aviation safety stream of things. So human factors is about looking at the reasons why pilots individuals more broadly do what they do. And we look at it from an error perspective. So why pilots make the wrong choice of decision or commit errors, and that results in an undesired event. Human factors is a very large component of the aviation industry, so much so all air operators within Australia and more generally around the world need to have a safety management system. And individuals that lead these safety management systems, the safety officer within the organisation, should have qualifications in the area of human factors and aviation safety. So that's just one of those roles. If I extend that further, you look at accident investigators. They also have qualifications in the area of psychology, human performance, and so forth. If I move outside of my discipline, psychology, and then we look at other roles, we've got individuals that schedule aircraft and they plan the routes of the aircraft. They also schedule staff members to be at a particular place to crew the aircraft. So these are other positions within the aviation industry. And they extend to both airlines as well as ground operators such as airports. So there are a vast number of roles within the aviation industry, but importantly, we train our students to be leaders in this area. So they quickly move from rather junior roles into these managerial roles. And the beauty about this, and forgive me, I'm extending your question and the answer to the question. We at a master's level, and I only discuss the undergraduates, but at a master's level, these leaders, these professionals within the industry, they come back and then teach our students, our new students, the skills and the knowledge that they've acquired beyond what they've learned at UNSW and in industry, and then feed that back through our program. So there's this really nice cycle of learning that occurs.
Thank you so much, Brett. And Malcolm, I'll ask you one more question, a bit of a blue sky. How do you think the airspace and aviation industry will be in the next 20 years? What do you think it will look like?
Well, a lot like it does now, actually. There'll still be aeroplanes flying through it. How they're powered might be different. So the traditional fuel is Jet A1, which is basically kerosene with some additives in it, and the fuel we use is called avgas, which is basically the same petrol that goes into a car, just slightly more carefully refined. So with the trend to go towards greener propulsion and more sustainable fuels, I definitely think that will change. So biofuel, even hydrogen. Hydrogen has some problems, but the pace of change in the technology is astounding. If you look at aviation as a whole, even 100 years ago, the change from then till now. But other than propulsion, there is a risk, I guess, that aeroplanes will become pilotless, but I don't think so, and I don't think it will be in our lifetime. It's just too risky to entrust those people in the back, the passengers that pay for all of this, without a human or two up the front to control the machine. So yeah, in terms of airspace, certainly the design of airspace and the navigation systems are becoming better and better and more efficient, and the aeroplanes themselves are becoming more efficient. I'm sure that people in the audience would know about the A350 and Project Sunrise that is going to put an A350 into the air for 20 odd hours to get it all the way around the world. So look, technology will change, but in the end, the traveling public will still want qualified, experienced and skilled pilots in the front of the machine.
Thank you, Malcolm. That's a nice way to finish. Malcolm or Brett, have you got any advice you'd like to give our high school students who are watching tonight, who are seeking a career in aviation?
I'll jump in first if you don't mind. From my perspective, it's do as well as you can at school. Focus on school, focus on English, and then the science subjects, maths, physics are important. And they're not only important for flying, but they're important for your all-round academic ability. What we focus on at UNSW is ensuring that you are the best student possible and that you will lead and walk out of our degree with the desire to lead in the chosen profession that you choose within aviation. And like we mentioned, there are many different career paths in aviation, whether it's aviation psychology, that human factors, or it's another management role. It's important that you do well at school and that you enjoy the courses that you do, because that will set you up for our program.
Thanks, Brett. Any final words of advice from you, Malcolm, before we finish?
Yeah, sure. Have fun once you get here would be my advice. Yeah, you got to work hard, but life's short. So provided you do your work and you're smart, which I'm sure you all are, then you'll succeed. But you got to remember the journey is just as good as the destination. And being a pilot's not about the destination; it's about the journey. So I'll just cover one fellow in the Q&A has had a heart problem and wants to know whether it will affect his medical. Look, I don't know. It might. Hopefully not. If you have any questions like that, any concerns about your fitness to fly, you really need to consult a doctor, a qualified aviation doctor, before you start, okay? Because hopefully there's nothing wrong, but there could be. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you next year.
Thank you so much, Malcolm and Brett. Before we finish, I just wanted to let you all know about a current affairs in aviation short course that UNSW Aviation has coming up in October this year. It'll give you a chance to get a taste of aviation and explore diverse career opportunities within the exciting industry that is aviation that we've all just heard about tonight. It is designed for high school students, and clearly you guys are all interested in aviation, so you're the perfect audience. It's delivered online, so it's great for our international audience. And registrations are opening soon, so you can visit the UNSW School of Aviation web page on the screen there, and we'll also send you through some further information. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you so much to Brett and Malcolm, giving us expert advice on the aviation flying and management programs here at UNSW. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this session. We have recorded the webinar and a link will be sent to you all shortly once we finish. If you still have questions and would like to speak with our UNSW Future Students team, you can scan the QR code on the screen there for contact information. But we also encourage you to reach out to us via phone, via email, and we also have a live chat feature on our website. I want to wish you all the best in your future studies, and we look forward to welcoming you to the UNSW Sydney aviation community in the future. Thank you all and have a good night.